Hey everyone, and welcome to our virtual cooking class. I am mealtime mentor and registered dietitian Casey, and I'm so excited to be joining you in your kitchen today from the Festival Foods Test Kitchen. I hope you're ready to get cooking. Today we are making a simple but tasty date night meal and drink all in one, which I love. I hope you're all ready to get cooking. If you're taking this class and you have any questions as you go along, feel free to reach out to us at askfestivaldietitians.com. All right, so today, like I said, we're making a really great date night meal. We are making Italian Drunken Noodles, which is just a fun name. This is a really fun dish because it incorporates wine, which is the drunken part of it, but I love it because then you have your drink pairing already built in there. Drinking that wine goes really well with the meal because you've got those flavors incorporated all throughout. So what I have already done is, first of all, wash my hands, so go ahead and do that if you haven't already. I do have my pasta going over here, so if you haven't started that yet, no worries, you definitely have time to catch up. But I'm using today some egg noodles, some wide egg noodles. If you can find extra wide, that's great, but really whatever kind of noodles you have on hand will work for this. I like the kind of long, flat noodle for this. It really kind of sops up all the juices in the sauce that we are going to make. So actually that looks pretty well done. So I'm going to go ahead and let that cook for just a little bit longer and then I'll turn that off. I also have my Italian sausage cooking here. So I've just put some olive oil in a pan and let that heat up and then added my Italian sausage. I'm just using like an already ground mixture. If you have links that you would want to use and just cut the casing off and crumble the meat inside, you can do that. If you would prefer to use a different kind of sausage or maybe a pork sausage, that would work well too. This is a turkey sausage and I'm using today, a little bit leaner than a pork sausage, but really whatever you prefer will work. So I've got this going in here. It's just about ready to go. We're gonna let that go for just a few more minutes and I'm gonna work on cutting some of the veggies that we're gonna put in this dish. We've got lots of really great veggies, which makes this a really good meal all in one pan. So the first thing I'm gonna cut is an onion. I'm using a yellow onion. If you would prefer a white onion, that works well too. But what I'm gonna do is quarter this, and then I'm just gonna cut it into slices. All right, and it looks like our sausage is just about ready. We want to make sure that the sausage is fully cooked before we add the veggies, just to make sure that it is fully cooked and not competing with that heat with anything else that goes in the pan. So I'm going to go ahead actually and add the onion that I just chopped. And I'll break up the pieces a little bit in the pan here. So the sausage took, I would say like 5 to 7 minutes to really cook fully. Once we've added the onions, we're gonna let it cook for about another 5 minutes or so. Maybe a little bit less, but really we just wanna make sure that those onions are really starting to cook and caramelize. If you don't go quite that long, that's all right, but we want to give the onions a little bit of time before we add the rest of the ingredients to kind of cook down a little bit. All right. It's smelling really good in here. Lots of good flavors going on. Okay, so we're going to let that continue to cook. I'm going to go ahead now, and I have 4 cloves of garlic. Add more if you'd like. But I'm just going to go ahead and mince these really quickly. We're going to add these later. Of course, if you prefer to buy the already minced garlic, that works well for this. A lot less prep. Or if you have one of those like garlic mincers, I love mine. I use it all the time. or a knife works as well. Whatever you've got, you can make it work. This is a really fun recipe for a date night meal, just because I think that making the meal can be part of the date night, you know, kind of having like an activity to go with your meal is always fun. And there's lots of kind of different steps going on that you can be working on at the same time if you want. Or if you're like me and you just get more stressed out when somebody else is in the kitchen, you can just make it by yourself, and that's fine too. What we usually do is, my husband is really good, and I say it's really not, I'm not being sarcastic when I say this, he's really good at pouring equal amounts of drinks, which sounds like a funny skill, but honestly, he's amazing at it. So that's usually his role, is just to make sure that the chef is well hydrated, and he's really good at that. All right, so we've got our garlic here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my pasta off. And I'm actually just gonna bring this over to the sink to drain. I am gonna reserve some of that pasta water because later on when we make the sauce, we might wanna thin it out a little bit. And pasta water works really well for that. It's nice and starchy. It helps everything kind of glue together. About a cup is what I'm gonna save. All right, we'll see if we can fit all of those noodles in later. So our pasta's done. I'm gonna go ahead and check on our sausage and onion. Oh my gosh, this smells amazing. Those yellow onions really do they break down really well, but again, a white onion works just fine as well. Awesome. I'm gonna let those cook for just a little bit longer, really just because I have more veggies to cook and I'm not ready to go on yet, which is fine. Those onions can hang out in there with the sausage. They'll get nice and caramelized. So we've got our garlic here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and slice my bell peppers. Today I'm using a red, an orange, and a yellow, just for a little bit of variety with color. Use whatever bell pepper you prefer. And there's really no wrong way to cut a bell pepper, but one way I like to do it is to cut off both of the ends, and then I'm gonna go ahead and slice those. Use as much of the pepper as we can. Cut those a little bit. And then I've got this nice kind of flat pepper here, and I'm just gonna make one slit down the side, and then it helps it to open up a bit. You might need to cut some of that membrane off, but then we've got just a nice flat pepper to work with. So I'm just gonna go through and slice these really as big as you want. I like to kind of make sure that they're still bite size. I mean, these are a little bit bigger than bite size, but that I can still kind of grab it with a fork and manage to get it into my mouth. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the same thing with the rest of these. I would say that orange, yellow, and red peppers are the most similar. As you know, green peppers definitely have a little bit of a different taste to them. They're not quite as sweet. But if you like green peppers, or if you happen to have those on hand, throw them in. They'll work just as well. Again, we're just getting like lots of really nice veggies with this dish. And if there's anything that I love when it comes to dinner, it's a meal all in one. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely, you know, having kind of your main dish and your side dishes, that's a good go-to meal as well, but I love saving dishes wherever I can. Cut that flesh out. You can also be better than I am being right now about getting the seeds out of the way. I really don't mind seeds with my peppers. I like kind of the different texture they add, but definitely feel free to take some time to remove those as well. All right, so we've got all of our bell peppers chopped now. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just add, oh yeah, we got some nice, I love that like brown on the sausage. Oh, that's my favorite. Just on the cusp of being burned, but not quite there yet. I'm just gonna turn the heat down a little bit to make sure that it doesn't burn. But I'm gonna go ahead now and add that garlic that I minced. I'm just gonna add some salt, some black pepper, some Italian seasoning, add a teaspoon of this. And some crushed red pepper. The recipe calls for a teaspoon. You can add less, you can add more. It does get pretty spicy with that teaspoon. I'm gonna add maybe a half a teaspoon just so that we can adjust it later. You can always add more, you know, when you're actually eating the meal. Okay, I'm just gonna give that a stir. Oh, I've said this before. If you want to impress somebody just by like how it smells in your kitchen, all you need to do is just put some onions and garlic in a pan, and that just smells amazing. All right, and now I'm going to add our bell peppers. And we're just gonna let those cook. I've got my heat right around medium, but we're just gonna let those cook for a couple minutes until the peppers are like tender crisp. If you prefer them a little bit softer, of course, go ahead and let them cook a little bit longer, but we'll keep a little crunch to ours. All right, so while that is cooking, I'm actually gonna pour myself a glass of wine. So like I mentioned before, usually with these classes, these date night classes, we've got a drink recipe to go along with the dish. Like I said, this one works really well because we're using a dry white wine in the recipe, so why make it more complicated than it has to be? We're gonna go ahead and use this for our drink pairing tonight. And actually the wine that I have is a Sauvignon Blanc. It's a drier white wine, but it's Havelock is one of our private label wines at Festival Foods. We've got a pretty good line of these wines, and they're pretty reasonably priced, and you can only find them at Festival Foods. So Havelock happens to be one of my favorites. I have always been a red wine person. I've never really liked white wine. I've always thought it tasted like perfume, but I've recently started getting into white wines more. And this Havelock is definitely one that I enjoy, and I have bought and brought to people's houses and just had on hand at home. So it's not as good as when my husband pours it, but I'll take it. All right, so these peppers are looking nice, and they're starting to get to that nice tender, crisp stage. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in some of this wine. So we are gonna add in, I believe it's a half of a cup. Can't skimp there. And we're just gonna let this cook just for a little bit until, I'm actually just gonna stir it, and that might be enough. Just until the white wine reduces a little bit, really soaks into those veggies. It's definitely already reducing, so we're in a good spot here. At this point, I'm going to add some diced tomatoes, just canned diced tomatoes. I'm just adding the entire can. I'm not going to drain it. Those juices definitely make for a really good sauce. I love having canned tomatoes on hand because I feel like they're so versatile to just toss with any veggies or meat or beans or pasta that you have on hand, and you've got a meal. So like I said, these are just plain diced tomatoes. You can also get petite diced tomatoes if you prefer smaller chunks. So we're gonna let that cook for a few minutes to really, again, just allow those flavors to come together. All right. So while that is cooking, I'm going to work on cutting our parsley and our basil, which we're going to add in later. So today, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. Something else that I did before the class started is I washed all of the produce just to make sure that was all ready to go. Today I'm using an Italian parsley. It's like a flat leaf parsley. Kind of the more standard parsley is like that curly parsley that you might see. Either one will work. The flat is a little bit easier to work with, just cutting and everything, but whatever you prefer. And I'm going to chop just about 2 tablespoons of this, but this is definitely something you can kind of eyeball. So when I'm cutting like herbs or something small like this, the best way that I have found to do it is just holding the knife over on the end like this and just kind of going back and forth. Keeping the tip of the knife on the cutting board and just rocking with the back of the knife. It just seems to be the most efficient for me. And it's a good way to make sure that my fingers are all safe because they're not on the cutting board, they're on the knife. It's so nice to get these fresh herby flavors and colors in this dish. We definitely eat with our eyes too. All right. So I do have a tablespoon. I'm just gonna, oh yeah, I definitely got more than enough here. So I'm just gonna scoot this all to the side here. Oops. I'm not making very much progress on my wine. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and slice some basil. So like I said, I went through and I rinsed this. I'm just gonna go ahead right away and get those really big stems out of there. We don't need those in the dish. Get those leaves separated. And something that I found that works well for cutting basil is doing like a chiffonade. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but basically I just like to kind of pile up all of my basil leaves, especially when you've got bigger leaves like this, and just roll them up as much as you can. And then from there, you can just go right through and slice from the end. You get some nice long slices there, which are very pretty and they go well in this dish. Basil is something, and other herbs are something that they bruise pretty easily when you cut them, so definitely do that closer to when you're actually going to be using them. All right, we need about a 1/4 cup of basil. So put that away and maybe use it in a drink or something else later. Okay, so we've got a nice, a little more than a simmer going over here. Those juices are really getting absorbed into all the veggies, coming together really well with that wine. So at this point, we've already got our pasta taken care of. So I'm going to go ahead and add those herbs. We've got our basil. I'm going to go ahead and add all of this parsley. And stir that together. Like I said, obviously we get some really good flavors from the basil and the parsley, but I also really love that punch of green that it adds. I don't think we're going to end up needing that reserved pasta water that we have, but it's good that we saved it just in case. If I wouldn't have saved it, we probably would have needed it. That seems to be how it goes in my kitchen. So I think we are good to serve then. Actually, what I am going to do is I'm going to see how well I can add these noodles. I don't know if my pan is quite big enough, but we're going to do the best we can. You can also definitely just like serve the noodles in your bowls or plates or whatever you're going to use, and then just add this mixture on top. But I like a little risk, so we're gonna try to toss this together. Oops. There we go. Starting to get some of those peppers up here. We've got the sausage, our onions, definitely a good dose of garlic. And of course, the nice punch of green from our herbs. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and serve this up then. Just to kind of show what our finished product looks like here. Oh, I love the texture of these noodles. Yeah, oops, the egg noodles, it really stands up well to everything else we've got going on in here. All right, so we've got our plate of noodles. And then to garnish, I'm just going to add a little bit more of that parsley, a little more basil, and finishing touch, we've got some shaved Parmesan. You can find this in the Cheese Island in our deli. I really love shaved Parmesan. I think it's my favorite form of Parmesan. Something about just those like really thin kind of strips. Just really does it for me. So there we have our date night meal. We've got Italian Drunken Noodles and a nice glass of the wine that you use to cook the noodles. So thank you for joining our class today. We hope you had fun and learned a few tips and tricks along the way. Again, if you have any questions or feedback you'd like to share about this class, you can reach out to us at askfestivaldietitians.com. To register for upcoming live classes, view previous classes, and then view the material that you'll need for both, you can visit festfoods.com/classes, and also be sure to follow Fest Foods on Facebook and Instagram to be the first to hear about our upcoming virtual cooking classes. You can also find more recipes from us, the Mealtime Mentors, at festfoods.com/meals. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.